I'll never forget that day in the village. It was the kind of day that changes everything, when the impossible happens right before your eyes, and you can't help but wonder if you were dreaming. We had all heard stories, but no one believed it could ever be true in real life. You see, in our village, the rich stayed with the rich, and the poor, well, we stayed with our own. But this story I'm about to tell you broke every rule we thought we knew. Her name was Amora. She was one of the poorest girls in our village. Everyone knew her. She wasn't invisible, no, she stood out. Her clothes were always old and torn, but she had a kind of beauty you couldn't ignore. It wasn't just in her face, it was in the way she carried herself, how she would help anyone who needed it, no matter how little she had. Even if her stomach was empty, she would share whatever she had left with someone who needed it more. Amora's life wasn't easy. Her mother died when she was a baby, and her father, who tried his best, fell sick when she was young. He couldn't work anymore, so Amora had to find ways to survive. She cleaned people's houses, fetched water, did anything she could for a little money. Sometimes, she would go days without eating. Yet, she never complained, never asked for more. She just smiled and kept moving. Then came the prince. His name was Olu. He was from the royal family that lived up the hill, far away from the rest of us. We didn't see him much, but we heard about him, how he went to school abroad, how he was destined to be the next king. He was everything we were not: rich, educated, and untouchable. No one knew how it happened, not even me, but somehow, Olu met Amora. They say he saw her one day fetching water from the river. Maybe it was the way the sun hit her face, or how gracefully she carried herself, but he couldn't stop looking. Olu began to show up at the river every day, just to catch a glimpse of her. At first, no one noticed. Why would they? He was a prince, and she was a poor girl, two words that were never meant to cross. But soon enough, rumors started flying. Some said he had fallen in love with her, others laughed at the thought. How could a prince love a girl like Amora? But the truth was, he did. One day, I was there when it happened. Olu walked right up to her, right in front of everyone. My heart nearly stopped. Everyone else froze too. What was he doing? We had never seen someone like him come so close to someone like us. But there he was, standing in front of Amora, looking at her as if she was the only person in the world. He said something to her, something none of us could hear, and for the first time, I saw Amora's face change. She looked confused, scared even. But Olu smiled, and that smile was enough to break down whatever walls she had built around her heart. From that day on, things were never the same. They started meeting in secret. Olu would come down from his palace on the hill, disguised so no one would recognize him, just to spend time with Amora. They would sit by the river, talking and laughing like they had known each other all their lives. I don't know what they talked about, no one does, but whatever it was enough to bring them closer and closer. People began to notice. Some were angry. They said it wasn't right. A prince had no business with a poor girl like Amora. Others were jealous, wondering why it wasn't them he had chosen. But Amora didn't care. She was in love, and so was he. It wasn't long before Olu told his parents about her. That's when things got hard. His family was furious. They said Amora wasn't fit to be part of their family, that she was too poor, too low. But Olu didn't listen. He fought for her, stood by her side even when everyone else turned against him. In the end, love won. Olu married Amora, not because of what she had, but because of who she was. The wedding was small and simple, nothing like the grand ceremonies you'd expect for a prince. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that they were together, that they had found something real in a world that tried to keep them apart. I'll never forget Amora's smile that day. It was the kind of smile that made you believe anything was possible. And maybe, just maybe, it was.